So imagine this. Someone calls you a bad name, or they tell you how much you suck at something, and you just kind of walk away and you don't really care. Or say you ask a girl out, she rejects you, you just kind of go about your day. Like you don't think about it constantly all day. You just kind of move on and forget about it. You walk into a classroom or a new work setting, and you're not thinking that others are staring at you. You don't think all eyes are on you. You don't think people are judging on you. You're just kind of going about your day and doing what it is that you have to do. Now, this would be pretty nice, in my opinion. Kind of having the ability to try new things. If you mess up, you're not afraid of others making fun of you. You just kind of do your thing, kind of in your own zone, in your own world, just kind of having fun with it. Now, one of the most powerful skills, in my opinion, in today's day and age, at least, is having that ability to not care what people think about you. Okay, it'd be amazing, like I said. And I'm sure we're all aware of some people out there who are like this, and we just wish that we could be the same, right? We're like, how do you do this and you just don't care, right? Like you make mistakes all the time and you just don't care what other people think of you. It'd be nice. Now, believe it or not, it's actually not that difficult to get there. It takes a little bit of work, a little bit of practice, but like anything else, it is very possible. So let's kind of talk about that today. So how to not care what anybody thinks about you. Let's begin with the why here. Okay, so why do we care so much? And it's easy to tell other people like, hey, like who cares? Like just go, do that thing over there, right? Don't let anybody bother you. Like who cares what they say? But in your own head and in your own body, you're like, yeah, right. Right? Like, I can't even go out and, try skateboarding because I'm afraid, if I mess up, people are going to watch me and make fun of me. Now, there's kind of a spectrum with this. Some people are like super overly anxious and they care about everything. Like they can't even like go to the grocery store by themselves. And then there's some people who are like good with most things. They might get a little bit nervous about some things, but again, it's kind of like a spectrum here. Why is it happening? Okay, so let's start with the anxiety part. Now, social anxiety specifically. What is it? Social anxiety is defined by a bunch of different sources of something kind of along the lines of, being fearful of a social situation or performance setting. And I think we can all agree on this, but why does it happen, right? Like, why are we so afraid of being in like a social setting? Now, I don't want to dive too deep into like the mechanisms and causes and stuff here, but really a lot of it comes down to how people view us, okay? We don't want to be rejected. We are afraid of being made fun of. We don't want to be called names. We don't want to look stupid, anything kind of along those lines. But real quick, like, anxiety is supposed to be a survival mechanism, okay? It's supposed to protect us from like real life threatening situations. Like if you're running in the woods from a tiger or something, or you're in like a secluded area and you like notice there's people watching you or things watching you, like that's when your anxiety is supposed to arise. So why are events like social settings so traumatizing? Well, it all comes down to our ego. And ego is kind of the perception of oneself. Okay, this includes your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-importance, and so on. Now, why is ego important in all of this? Well, we don't want to care what people think of us. I would take a pretty good guess that most people out there would love to do whatever they want without a care in the world. There'd probably be a lot more successful people out there too. And just imagine like how many creative, awesome ideas are like stuck in someone's head, but they're too afraid to put that idea out there because they're afraid of being judged from it. It's kind of crazy to think about. But again, like, why does this happen? So it's our ego. And our ego does not want to be crushed. Okay, our ego tries to keep us safe. It tries to keep us looking good, and it doesn't want to put us in any fearful or anxious situations. Typically, ego gets looked at as someone who's like cocky, or they treat others poorly, or they're very self-absorbed, stuff like that. And this is true, but it does go both ways. It keeps us from exposing ourselves. It keeps us from chiming into conversations. It keeps us from going to parties or asking someone out on a date, because we don't want that rejection, right? We don't, like I said, we don't like being put in that crappy situation. So overall, ego is in arrogant, cocky, and self-absorbed people, but it's also in like the quiet, shy, introverted people as well. So how do we break this? It is possible. It can be hard for some people. So just kind of keep that in mind. But I've had a lot of success with this simply by finding ways to own up to my mistakes, ask questions, even if it's a stupid question, and then a lot of self-reflection. So you can kind of throw like some meditation in this as well, but just kind of self-reflecting and thinking about like myself, my daily routine, all of that stuff in one. Now, here's my process with it, right? So if I'm going to go give a public speech in a class or something, before, like, I would have been really nervous. But the thing is like, I would have tried to hide that nervousness a lot. Now, if I were to still go give a speech, like, I'd still be pretty nervous, especially if it's around a bunch of people that I don't know and I'm in like a new setting and it's just uncomfortable. Like, yeah, I would still be kind of nervous. But again, before I would have tried to hide it. Okay, I would have pretended like I was okay. I would have, done the best that I could and tried not to make any mistakes whatsoever. And I would have played it off like I did it perfectly, even though like I know I didn't play perfectly at all. My thing before was like I used to choke up on my words all the time. Like I'd be in the middle of talking and then I would just like choke and stop and then I would like clear my throat and then get back into saying whatever it is that I'm saying. And even though like I knew I messed up in my speech, like my ego was protecting my identity, right? Like I didn't want other people to know that I was nervous. I didn't want other people to know or see any mistakes that I made. However, what I would do now is kind of like simply make a joke out of it or openly let people know like, hey, like I'm kind of nervous right now, so don't make fun of me, right? Like I might not have said like those exact words, but the thing is I would have put it out there, maybe try to get like a chuckle out of some people, just kind of lighten the mood, lighten the air, and so on. Basically, I was just exposing myself, but at what cost, right? Like it's not like someone's gonna raise their hand and like laugh at you or point at you because you went up to give a speech and like you just said you were nervous about it. Like nobody cares, okay? The thing is though, is like people will engage with you more if you do this, and they'll be a little bit more friendly, and people just overall like this, right? Like we like others who are open. It's kind of a sign of trust and friendliness. Now, another example that I can get is more like work related. So it's kind of the same thing, but if you're having trouble with like a certain project or whatever, like let people know that you're having trouble, like, hey boss, I'm really struggling with this project. I'm not sure if I misunderstood the directions or what. Could you please explain this a little bit more in detail? And again, you can like kind of try to make a little joke out of it if you need to. But overall, like just exposing yourself, being open about it, like people are okay with that. Like they don't care. Like I'm sure a boss would rather you ask, a stupid question about something than do the whole project wrong and then 2 weeks later go back on it and be like, what the fuck is this? Like, what did you do? So ask questions for sure, even if you think it's stupid. Kind of on the flip side here though, like what happens if it goes wrong, right? Because I've been in this situation before too. You openly say something and someone kind of makes like a snarky comment towards you or a remark and they just make you feel even more uncomfortable. Like it's weird. Now, kind of think about this, okay? So say somebody else is up in front of the class, they're giving a speech, and like they're openly nervous about it. Like they say like they're nervous, they kind of let the class know, whatever. And say like the person next to you starts making fun of them or they start doing something that makes that person even more nervous, right? Now, the thing is like it's easier said than done, but try not to let this bother you either, just because this is something that I've recently done as well, is I've kind of flipped my perspective. Instead of somebody saying something like that to me and then making myself feel even worse, all this is simply a sign of that person's character, okay? Like, fuck that person. Like, who goes out of their way to kind of make somebody else uncomfortable for their own entertainment and their own happiness, okay? So it's probably somebody who has, like, their own insecurities and their own issues themselves, right? Like, nobody should be going out of their way to, quote, bully somebody or make them feel even worse in a public setting like that, just because it's not, like, I don't know, it's not very friendly of anybody. So kind of another example I can give is say like you're going to the gym and you're doing an exercise wrong, right? Say someone, I don't know, comes up to you and they make fun of you for whatever reason for lifting the weight that you're lifting and the technique that you're using. So again, it might sting a little bit, but like you don't have any reason to feel bad for it, right? Like you didn't do anything wrong. You were at the gym trying to exercise, trying to get better, and someone came up to you and made fun of you. Like, screw that person. Like, why? Like, there's no point in that happening. You shouldn't feel bad about yourself because you didn't do anything wrong. You were trying something and they just kind of came out of their way to make fun of you, right? Like, again, it's just, all it is a sign of that person's character, and they've probably got a lot of other issues going on in their head. Whether they do or they don't, that's just kind of something that I've flipped in my own brain, and it's worked tremendously for me. These are also the type of people where, like, you just don't have time for this stuff. And again, I know it's easier said than done, but you shouldn't let it bother you because you didn't do anything, right? People like this don't deserve any attention whatsoever. Like, you can't let them say something, get to you, and then, you just kind of cower down, quiver up, and, like, walk away and go home or something. Like, no, like, just keep doing what you're doing or go to another exercise and just go about your day. So, all in all, kind of getting to the point where you don't care what anybody thinks of you. Again, it's all about your ego and just not giving into it. You kind of have to, like, detach yourself from this a little bit. Be okay with exposing yourself. Be okay with asking questions, even if you think it's dumb. Try to make a joke out of it if possible. Be open, because again, people like this attitude. And I guarantee you, so many people out there are probably going through the same stuff and they feel the same way. So when you open up about that and you say it, it's just going to make them even more comfortable with you. And again, it's kind of a sign of like friendliness and trust there. So, people like all of this stuff. It's kind of a win-win for everybody. And if someone does make a snarky remark towards you, just remember that it's a flaw in their own character. Like, I don't care what the situation is or who you are. Like, if you're an asshole and you intentionally make fun of someone for your own happiness or to like deliberately bring them down, like, fuck that person. You don't have any time for that, and you should not be giving them any attention whatsoever. So hopefully this video helps you out a little bit. Like I said earlier, it's not the easiest, but you can get there, right? If you start small, get to a point where you start to expose yourself just a little bit, learn to take criticism in a healthy way, and overall just be open to people. Let people know how you're feeling, okay? It'll do wonders for your confidence. It doesn't seem like it will, but trust me, like if you get comfortable putting yourself in that uncomfortable situation and just letting everybody know, it goes a really, really long way. Your ego's controlling, but it doesn't have to be, okay? You can find detachment from this. So that's all I have for today. If you like the video, please give it a like and subscribe. I'm kind of setting a goal for myself to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the year, and I would really appreciate any help that you guys can give. Any like feedback on how to do videos, what to talk about, what to say. If you guys have anything to add, I would love to hear it in the comments below. Any tips or tricks that you've used to kind of get yourself to a point where you don't really care what others think about you and you're a lot more comfortable going out and doing things on your own or talking to random people. Again, I would just love to hear it down below. So with that said, good luck out there, and I hope you guys all have a good rest of your day.